All right, hello everyone. Today I am here to help you sew an arm ruffle just like this for ballet class. I have my lovely helper Tina here. We'll see how long she stays with us. She tends to get bored when she doesn't get enough attention. Come on, sweetie pie. But she wanted to be here, so she's gonna help us out as long as she can handle. So these little arm ruffles are so pretty, and the reason I want to sew one right now is because in October in the Broche online studio we're doing the Myrta variation from Giselle. So Myrta is the queen of the willies. The willies are these super creepy ghost ladies who haunt men who've betrayed them and make them dance until they die. It's like a super crazy storyline. But they wear these beautiful arm puffs, these beautiful arm ruffles, and I learned how to make them this morning from a tutorial on Conservatory by primadonna.com. They're called arm ruffs or arm ruffles. There's so many different kinds of these sleeves. Actually, I'll show you a quick picture that I have pulled up on my computer. So there's so many of these different kinds of sleeves. We are making this one today, the ruffle. There's a puff, which has a elastic on the top and the bottom, a ruffle with a puff, right? So you've got the puff with the ruffle. We've got so many different beautiful options. This one used in Don Q a lot, the Spanish style. So we're gonna make this ruff today. So here is the tutorial that I'm following right here. Conservatory by Prima Donna, and I'll put this link in the description after the live ends. So it takes us through how to make an arm ruff. So let's get started. All right, so as you can see, I have a piece of tulle. I also have elastic, 1/4 inch elastic. I just picked it up at the store yesterday for this little project. I am gonna use a sewing machine. I'm not a very proficient sewer, so if you have a sewing machine but you're not proficient like I am, I still managed to make it happen. If you were to use a needle and thread, you probably could. It would just take a while longer to sew it. The machine goes real fast through it. So I have the elastic, the tulle, which you can find at the fabric store like Joann's or anything like that. It's actually pretty inexpensive to get tulle. We think about tutus being super expensive, but just the plain tulle actually isn't that expensive, which is fabulous. So I have some squares left over actually from last Memorial Day when we did a Giselle intensive over Memorial Day. We got these and we had little veils to be the willies. So I'm using some of that tulle. Is that for you, Tina? So I'm using some of that tulle today to make these little arm ruffs. So let's get started. So again, I am not that proficient of a sewer, so hopefully this is helpful if you aren't too, because you'll get to see all of my mistakes and all of that. And if you are a proficient sewer, feel free to take what I'm saying and do it your way always, because you may know a lot more than me about sewing. So I have my piece, it's unfolded. I'm gonna fold it 4 times, fold it in fourths. Like I said, we fold 2 times, fold in fourths. Oh, I know, Tina, you're so cute. So we're gonna fold it in 4. Do you guys have helpful helpers at home too? Look how helpful she is. I always love having my little helpers. So there's one, and then we'll do another fold. Hi, Tina, you're being silly. Okay, so now I have it folded in fourths. I'm gonna keep referring to my instructions over here as well. Oh, hi, Tina. Do you like it? Do you like the tulle? I think this means she wants a tutu, huh? Should we make a tutu for her next? I think we should make a tutu for her. Tina is a Spanish Greyhound. She's a galgo. She came all the way from Spain to live with us. So I have all 4 of my corners gathered up here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then I'm gonna move my camera so I can show you what I'm gonna do next. Okay, so I'm gonna lay it flat. I'm actually gonna lay it flat on a mat here. Okay, so let's move the camera so you can see what's going on. Okay, so here we are. I'm gonna pull this little mat over. Move all my supplies. Okay, so what I'm gonna do here, I have my tulle laid flat, and I'm gonna actually draw 2 little 1/4 circles on the fabric. The instructions recommend that you use like some fancy disappearing pen, which again, as I mentioned, I'm not that proficient with sewing, so I don't have that sort of supply sitting around in my house. and it's Sunday and I had the excitement to make it today, so then I wanted to do it. So I just rolled with it, and I'm gonna use a pencil. Okay, so I found it a lot easier if I pin the tulle together first. So I'm gonna go ahead and pin it so that it stays together while I'm measuring. So I'm gonna pin these corners. My sweet Tina. I'm gonna pin these corners. Okay, we'll try not to get distracted here with Tina. I could get distracted and snuggle her for the entire day. Huh, Tina? She knows as well as I do that if she is super cute, I'll stop what I'm doing and snuggle her. Okay, so I'm pinning all of the edges together just to make it easier to work with the tulle. Let me actually tip you guys up a little bit more so you can see that. So I'm just basically trying to lay them flat. Okay, Tina. Okay, Tina. Oh, you just made that so much worse, Tina. We're gonna have to kick her out, huh? Okay, sweetie pie. Okay, so we're laying the tulle flat. And we're gonna pin it together, just like that. We're not gonna use these pins for anything except for just making it easier to handle. So again, we've got it folded in quarters. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna draw a little circle, this here, and then here, and it's gonna make me a band, an arc. So here's what I'm gonna do, because again, I don't have that fancy, I don't have the fancy marking pen. So I'm gonna measure 10 inches from the corner, and I'm gonna make a mark with my pencil. And then I'm gonna measure 10 inches from the corner the other way and make a mark with my pencil. Then I'm gonna just make 2 marks as if it was a circle. So like I'm drawing, the radius of a circle here, like that. And then again, I'm gonna make 1 more like this. And then now what I'm gonna do is just cut along what that circle looks like to me. So I have just my little pencil mark here. And again, the official instructions, they suggest that you use a disappearing ink, which would be super nice, and then you don't have to use a pencil. But I can't see the pencil marks on mine, so it's no problem. So we're gonna just cut this little semicircle. Oh, I forgot a step that made it really a lot easier last time I did it. I actually wanted to remember to pin it this time past the semicircle, because last time when I cut my semicircle, then I had to reline everything up, and that was a pain. So let me just remember to do that right now. So pinning even more of the fabric together. I've got pins all along the corners, and I'm just gonna cut. Cutting. And this is seems like it doesn't have to be super precise of an action, because when you are done with it, it kind of gets all folded up anyways. So I didn't worry too much about it being perfect. I know that's not a dancer's strong suit, but it really helps to just keep it simple. Now I'm gonna take these pins and put them along this inner seam. Come here, Tina. Tina, did you hear her bark a little bit over there? She wants to play. The greyhounds, the galgos, the Spanish greyhounds, they're so lazy. They're only awake for a few hours every day, and this is one of those few hours. They're very sleepy dogs. Okay, so now as you can see, I have a little bite cut out of my tulle. Oh, Tina. Oh, Tina. Okay, go outside. We're gonna just let Tina outside. So I have a little bite cut out of my tulle here. So just like this. And now I'm gonna go 5.5 inches and make another arc 5.5 inches away from this one, so that I have basically 2 circles that I'm cutting. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna take my little measuring tape. Again, this the instructions did suggest using like a stainless steel ruler, but we moved recently and I honestly can't find mine. So again, I was excited about it, so I just made do with the supplies I had. So here I am, 5.5 inches, and I'm gonna draw a little line right here, right there. And then over here, same thing, 5.5 inches, just like that. And I'm gonna draw a little line right here. And then I'm gonna go, again, just a few times. So this time I'm gonna go around the inside of the circle. So I put the 5.5 on the inside, draw a mark, 5.5 on the inside, draw a mark, 5.5 on the inside, draw, and then let's just mark one more time. So right there. Okay, so now I'm just gonna go ahead and cut that all out, and then I'm gonna get one little band like that. So let's cut this out. So here's that line. Now I did pencil, as I mentioned, and the only way I can see the pencil is because I have my fabric on this dark background. I initially tried it on the carpet and it was a disaster. I couldn't see the pencil. So if that's helpful, put it on a darker background and then you'll be able to see what you're doing. Turn it around. Okay, so I'll show you what we've got here. We'll unpin it all, put all the pins back so that we don't step on them. All the way to the edge. Okay. All right, so here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna put all these pins away while we're talking, and then I will show you the situation. So I have most of the tulle is not used. I put it aside. We waste a lot of tulle here. We waste a lot of tulle, but that's okay. It's all for a good cause. It's all for a good cause. Maybe I'll make a tutu for Tina out of the rest of it, right? It's almost Halloween. Maybe she could use one. So again, I'm just putting all these pins away. What we're gonna do is we're gonna make a little pouch for the elastic to go in. So as you can see, this is actually held up by the white elastic. It's a 1/4 inch elastic, 1/4 inch wide elastic. You can find it at the store. Like I said, I picked mine up at Walmart yesterday. You can find it there. You can find it at fabric stores, Michael's, Joann's, places like that. So what we have here is we have our little arc of fabric. So what we're gonna do is we're going to make a little pouch in here for the elastic, and then we'll sew it shut, and then we'll have our little arm ruff. So let's get started. We're gonna go like this. I'm gonna tip you guys up so you can see. What I'm gonna do is make a little 1/2 inch wide, and let me just check on mine real fast before we go, because I think something went a little haywire in my process where I was expecting these two to come out attached to each other and not separate. I was expecting it to come out like this. So let's see what happened. Yes, I forgot a key important step, which is always the danger of doing things live, or maybe the most helpful part of doing things live, because then when you make a mistake, you get to share it with everybody. So here's what I was supposed to do. I forgot a very key step while I was talking to you guys. While I was playing with Tina, right? I should have been focused. I was playing with Tina. So I forgot a very important step, which is that when I folded, I'm going to be pinning on the fold here, right here. So the folded part is where I'm gonna do the process. So let's actually just give it another try. And if you're gonna watch this later, I'll be sure to note that part. So basically what we're gonna do, give it another shot. I think this fabric should still be long enough. It should be 10, 15.5. Yeah, this fabric is long enough to make another one. That explains why it was so challenging to pin the tulle, because I wasn't on the fold. Do you see what I'm talking about? So you know how I folded it a couple of times? I need that fold to be here where I'm gonna be doing it. That way when I open it, it's gonna be attached. So what happened was I did it like this, and I got 4 pieces, but I really should have gotten 2 pieces folded in half, but I got 4 pieces. So here, I'll show you again, and then that'll make more sense. So we're gonna pin just again to make it easier to work with the material, because the tulle is actually like kind of challenging to maneuver and manipulate. Again, if you're more proficient with sewing and working with fabrics, maybe you don't need this step, but I certainly found it to be easier. So pin. Pin. Okay, so now I have a nice pinned fabric, and you can see that I've gone ahead and corrected the mistake, and I have the fold here, and then I have a fold here as well. So let's do those 10 inches again. That was the first dimension, 10 inches. So 10 inches, and then I draw my little line with a pencil. And then now I'm gonna go 10 inches, keep the measuring tape on the corner, draw my little line with the pencil, 10 inches on the corner, and then one more time, 10 inches. And then we're going to, we're going to cut, but I'm gonna pin a little bit more so that that makes my life a little easier. Pin. And then we're gonna cut on that line, we're gonna cut our little semicircle, quarter circle here. So we're cutting, and we're just cutting in a nice little circle. I'm trying to make it as round as possible so it makes a nice pretty ruffle down the sleeve. And again, I don't need this piece, so I'm just gonna set it aside. I'm gonna reuse those pins. I'm gonna pin together this raw edge so that I can measure from it. So remember this next step, we did 5.5 inches radius here so that we could make a 5-inch long ruffle. 5 inches. If you want it to be a longer ruffle, then you would just do more than 5 inches. You could do 7 inches or whatever, however long you want your ruffle to be. If you want to go wild, you know, really long ruffle. So I've got this pinned. Again, these pins I don't think are necessary. The instructions did not have them, but it was really hard to manipulate the fabric. So we're going 5.5 inches. We're going to measure several times around this semicircle. So there's one. We're gonna just keep going along the edge. There's 2. There's 3. There's 4. And then we'll go one more. Okay, so now we're gonna cut along this semicircle. We're gonna cut like this. All the way around. I don't need to pin this part because I'm just going to get rid of this tulle, so I'm not going to worry too much about that. And you can see how the fabric gets a little unwieldy, so that's why I liked having the pins there. Going around. Okay, then we set that aside. So now I'm going to put these pins away. Again, we'll chat a little bit while we do that. So again, this does use that sewing machine. Before this, I did do a few test runs on a piece of tulle. I folded a piece of tulle in half and did a couple of test runs to make sure I had the tension and everything correct. If tension is new to you, then there's so many amazing videos on YouTube about how to deal with tension. I had no idea what tension was. I sewed a little bit when I was a kid. I loved to make doll clothes for my doll when I was a kid. And I sewed a little bit, so I know a little bit, but just enough to shoot myself in the foot sometimes. So there's so many videos on YouTube. All right, so now I actually went too far the other direction, and I have a loop instead of 2 separate ones, which is okay. This is much easier to fix. So I'm actually gonna cut this loop in half. So that was probably because I had too many folds on the sides. So let's just cut this loop in half. Again, that's a much easier problem to solve. So we're going to cut it into 2 pieces. Again, Sewing is always complicated. If you are with me, then hopefully you're here commiserating with me. But I feel like sometimes it's helpful to see people making these mistakes because you're following the instructions and they always make it look so easy, but it's always more complicated than it seems, right? Okay, so now we have this U-shaped piece of fabric. Actually, probably if I set it down, you can see a little bit better. Let me flip my camera so I can show you. Okay, so I have this sort of U-shaped piece of material all the way around. Yeah. And that's gonna make the ruffle of the sleeve. So now we're gonna make a little casing for the elastic. So let's cut the elastic. I'm gonna cut 18 inches long, which is what the instructions suggest. That worked well for my arm. It wasn't too tight, it wasn't too loose, it worked really well. You're also welcome to, of course, change that dimension, but the 18 inches worked okay for me. Here, you can look at the size of my arm and see if it looks similar to your arm. So let's cut the elastic 18 inches. And then we'll make the little casing for the elastic in the tulle. So here's 18 inches. I'm gonna cut it. And basically what's gonna happen is we want the elastic to sit at the top here so that it can hold it on our arm. So what we're gonna do is make a little casing for it. I'll show you how to do that right now. So I'm gonna tip you down again so you can see what I'm doing. I did not do a very precise measuring job on this, mostly because the tulle is actually, as I mentioned, very unwieldy. So they suggested making about 1/2 inch casing. I sort of eyeballed it on my way around. So you can see I'm basically making a little holder where I can stick the elastic in. So I'm gonna pin at the, like near the edge of this material. I'm gonna do the first pin, then I'll show you what I did. So I pinned there. The elastic is gonna go right through here so that we can attach it to our arm. So I'm gonna just keep pinning here. I think I'll move you guys to the other side because I'll be using my right hand and I think you'll be able to see a little bit easier what's going on. Always feel free to shoot me your questions and comments, even if they're just about ballet. I'm always happy to do something while I'm pinning all these, all of these. Okay, so basically I'm gonna go all the way around the circle and pin this 1/2 inch casing all the way around. Then I will sew it on the sewing machine so that I can put my elastic through it. And you wanna make sure that when you're pinning it, you're pinning close to where you're gonna sew. So if you're thinking about this being a casing, you are gonna need room for the elastic. Oops, let me just turn it around so I can show you. You are gonna need room for the elastic to go through here. So you're gonna sew close to the edge of this material, which means you want to pin down here and don't put your pins at the top. Your pins go down here so that you can make room for that elastic. Trying to make like a tunnel for the elastic basically. And when we're all done with pinning all this, then we sew it and then we put our elastic through it and then we're done. It's really not that complicated of a process once you do it. But as you saw me do here today, there are many places where it can go awry. So we keep pinning. I'll try to pin as quickly as I can while you're over there. Again, feel free to shoot me your questions. So I'm just pinning. It's always fun to have some accessories. As I mentioned at the beginning, we're doing the Myrta variation from Giselle in our online studio this month in October because it's so fun for Halloween. It's so spooky and creepy. They're ghosts who haunt men and who betrayed them and make them dance until they die. It's quite the dark storyline, but they're very, very spooky for Halloween, for October. So that's why we're doing it. And one of their signatures, they have these tulle veils that cover them and make them look super creepy, literally like ghosts with the sheets with the eyes cut out. And then they have the arm sleeves, the ruffles that that I showed you at the beginning. They have those as well, and they're really pretty. So that's what we're doing here. We're making that so that we can have something nice and pretty to dance with. I think it's always fun to play dress up at home. Always fun. And a little of the extra accessory really makes the look of the character. I think it's always really fun. So we keep pinning here, we keep pinning around this circle. Again, we're working with the tool. It's kind of like unwieldy. It doesn't like to hold the pins. So just do your best. Oh, awesome, Andrea. Thanks for your feedback on the pointe shoe video. I always find sewing pointe shoes to be such a pain. Honestly, one time when I was in New York City, so I lived in New York City for many years, and I got a pair of pointe shoes, and the store didn't sew it for me, and so I actually literally took it to a tailor. I took it to a tailor and had a tailor sew my pointe shoes. They only charged me $10. It was quite impressive, but I actually had the elastics pinned on and took it to a tailor. It was so funny. That's how averse I am to sewing, but this is for a good cause, so that's why I'm doing it. Okay, so I'm gonna take you guys up to my sewing machine so that you can watch me sew it. Again, I'm not a hugely proficient sewer, so take my advice with a grain of salt. Look, as I mentioned, from being from New York, I kept one of my coffee tins from my favorite Brooklyn roasting in New York City. Okay, so as I mentioned before this, I did already do some practice runs with my fabric just to make sure that the tension was right. If you don't know much about tension, that's okay. There's so many amazing YouTube videos. There's so many like extremely amazing sewers on YouTube. You can learn anything from YouTube. It's amazing. Okay, so what I'm gonna do here, I've got my foot pedal down here, and I'm gonna put my tool in here. Again, I am sewing. I think if I flip my camera, it'll be better. I am sewing the tool. Oops, one sec. I am sewing the tool. That was not better. I'm sewing the tool close to the edge of the casing that I made. I'm not sewing it at the edge of this. I'm sewing about 1/2 inch inward towards the inside. That way, I'm sewing like here, not at the edge of the fabric, because I still need my elastic to go through the casing. I want to have a pouch for it. So let's do some sewing together. I actually have no idea how this is going to sound over YouTube because I've never done sewing on YouTube before. So hopefully the sound isn't crazy. The instructions recommended doing a back stitch here, so going forward and then back again. You know, I just honestly found that bunched up my tool, and I'm not really sure that I need it. So I'm just gonna do a really, really light lock stitch and not go too crazy. So I'm gonna go a little bit and then just a little bit back. It was just like kind of crazy when I did it before. Okay, and again, we're just gonna navigate these turns and these corners and see how it goes. Okay, we're still going. Always like to check that my bobbin still has thread. Nothing worse than getting to the end of a thing and then there's no more thread in your bobbin. So I'm just feeding it through. Again, I used to love sewing clothes for my American Girl doll when I was a kid, and that's where I learned mostly how to sew. But since then, I've really only sewed like jammies for my dog because I'm a crazy dog person, and a couple of things here and there, so I'm not terribly skilled at this. Every time I try is a new adventure. And this is no different. Okay, so I'm almost done here. And I'm just trying to keep guiding the fabric because it's on a curve, so it's a little bit challenging to keep guiding it. And I'm just always double checking the back to make sure that I'm not accidentally sewing it to itself because I have done that before. So we're just checking. I always like to just pause a little every so often and just see how it's going. All right, we're getting there. I don't know, I hear it getting a little clunky. Hopefully it's doing all right. But again, as I mentioned, the good news is that it does get kind of to be a ruffle, and so if it's not precise, it really turned out okay. The last one, even though I did the same procedure and it was not, it is not amazing. I'm sure there's so many people out there who can do a much more beautiful job than this. Okay, so I'm nearing the end. I'm just gonna do one little lock stitch and back and forward, and then we're gonna open it up. I have a little clipper thing here, so I'm just gonna clip that. Okay, so let's go back down to the floor and I'll show you the final step. So, hello everyone just joining. We are sewing arm ruffles for the Myrta variation that we're doing in the online studio in October. It's gonna be super fun, Halloween, spooky ghost story. So I gotta take all these pins out. So it's a great chance to ask me your questions if you have any. Talk about ballet. So Myrta and Giselle. Giselle is an awesome ballet, very old. But basically the story is that Giselle is a young peasant and she falls in love with a prince. The stories kind of vary, but he basically betrays her and then she dies. Basically, she goes insane because she's so sad and she dies. And then she becomes one of these ghosts called Willies. And Myrta is their queen, the queen of the Willies. Myrta leads them all in haunting the men who've betrayed them and making them dance until they die. In some renditions, Giselle saves her lover and stops him from being killed, and in some they make him die. It just depends on how dark that particular choreographer is feeling. So I'm just gonna cut this little tail off. So I got a chance to learn Giselle. I learned the main Giselle variation and the main Myrta variation from Gelsey Kirkland herself at the Gelsey Kirkland Academy. I did their collegiate intensive back when I was 21, and it was fabulous, fabulous experience, and got to learn it from both of them. So because of that experience, I really had a very up-close experience with the ballet and got to know it at a much deeper level than I would have if I was just watching it on YouTube or on TV or in the theater. So I think that's why I have such an affinity to it, because I got to really learn all the details about it from them and how much they care about it and all the history of it. So, okay, I put all the pins away. Let's get back to the final step here while I put the pins away. And I have my elastic here somewhere. Here's the elastic. Okay, so 18 inches elastic, right? I am going to take a safety pin, pin it to the end of the elastic, and close it. Okay, now I'm gonna start feeding it through here. So I have my pouch. Yeah, it's kind of a shoddy construction work. See, it's good. I heard that clunking, right? It's a little shoddy, but that's okay because it turns into a ruffle, right? My original one. See how it turns like all bunched up anyways? So a little bunches on here doesn't really matter as much. Like this had some bunches too, so it's gonna be fine. Okay, so I did make this mistake before, so I'm going to help you hopefully not make the same mistake. Okay, so I'm gonna take my safety pin right here and I'm gonna start threading it through. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hold the edge of it and then just start feeding the safety pin through. Now in my clever mind, I thought, oh, well, halfway through I was getting to have too much fabric here, so I'll just pull the pin all the way through. Mistake. I think it's important to keep the thumb here so that when you pull it all the way through, that you have the elastic still on the other end, because basically what happened was my elastic ended up halfway through the pocket and then I couldn't reach it, so I had to do it again. So don't do it that way. Don't do it that way. Resist the urge. Keep this giant bunch of fabric right here so that you can hold it when you pull it through the other edge. Okay, so we're almost there to the edge. It's getting quite unwieldy to hold. There is a tool that the tutorial suggests that you have to thread this through. It looks way better because it's like a super long needle. But I don't have one of those, so we're making do. So you see how I have this whole thing bunched up. Okay, now I'm gonna very carefully release this but I'm not gonna let it go past the end of my elastic. In fact, what I did, because I was paranoid after that first experience, what I did was I just went ahead and pinned it. I pinned it to itself. So let's do that again here. So I went like this. I went through. Oh no, I didn't even use a safety pin. I actually used a straight pin. That's gonna be easier. Let's use the straight pin. I knew that didn't feel familiar. Okay. Straight pin, I went through like this, and then through like this, and then now I have my elastic pinned. I don't have to worry about it anymore. So now I can do whatever I want with this side and not have to worry about my elastic falling through the other edge. So I'm gonna just go like this as if it was a curtain rod type of a situation. And I will again pin this other side. So let's take a straight pin. And again, we'll just go a little past so that we have space. And we pin it just like that. Okay, so now if I held the edges, this is what it looks like. So the last thing I need to do here, actually there's 2 more steps, but this step, I need to complete this loop. So I need to sew this together like this. So what I'm gonna do is sew these edges together. So I'm gonna go like this. I wanted to go this way at the end, so I'm gonna go the other way. Then I'm gonna line them up like this. I'm gonna line up the 2 edges. So like this, line up those 2 edges. Okay, from here, I'm gonna pin it. I'm gonna pin it together so I can sew it. So let's put some pins here at the edge, right? And then we're gonna go again. Pinning, I think this being lined up is the most important thing, this edge. And then this one. Okay, and it's really, really important that you don't sew where your elastics are. When I was a kid sewing my doll clothes, I would always do a double pin to remind myself to stop on the sewing machine. So let's do a double pin. I would go like that, and then a double pin, because otherwise I'd get too excited and I would keep sewing. So we're gonna sew only there. We're not gonna sew all the way to the edge with the elastics. We're gonna sew only to that seam that we already made. So from this edge to that seam, okay? Let's go to the sewing machine and we'll sew it. Okay. So here we go. We're gonna just get our bearings here. And we're gonna put this edge right there. Now the rule I always follow is that you want the edge of your fabric lined up with the foot of your sewing machine. I'll try this turning one more time and see if that can work. So I have the edge of my fabric lined up with the edge of my foot here of my sewing machine, and I'm just gonna sew straight down that line. Okay, so let's give it a try. I think I'll do a little lock just like I did before. Okay. So let's keep going. I think all systems are go. Again, I check everything all the time because I'm very new at this. It's been a while since I did it. Oops, my thread's getting a little funky. See? Look at that, it made it a little funky on the edge here. That's what I was saying last time when I did the lock, it got a little funky. So let me just try that again. Just cut that off. Let's start maybe just a little further, and that might be more helpful. The tulle again is like actually kind of challenging to sew with. It's so delicate, the fabric is so delicate. Okay, so let's just start. I'm just gonna start a little farther down the tulle and then I'll lock back from there. So I'm gonna go here and then I'm gonna walk it back and then I'll go forward again. Okay, and then I gotta stop at my double pin, right? I've got to stop right here. I'll do a little lock and then I'll come up. Okay. All right, so now I have that sewed. Let's go back and tie it off. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna put all these pins away, but not the pins holding the elastic. So we're gonna put these pins away. So you notice I still have my elastics pinned. Now what I'm gonna do is take the ends so that I'm not gonna lose them. I'm gonna pull out these straight pins. And then what I'm gonna do, the last step here, is to tie these elastics. So I am gonna tie it basically so that it looks like it's gonna fit around my arm. And I initially tied it with a bow tie, just in case I needed to redo it. Right, it's always a lot easier to undo a bow tie than it is a knot. So I did a bow tie, half a bow I think is what I managed to get, half a bow. And then put it on my arm and see how it's going. I actually think that that tightness might be all right. So then the very last step, I will tie my bow tie into a square knot. Yes, Tina will get one. Look at all this extra fabric I have. Tina is definitely gonna get one. I don't know if she'll wear it. Will she be happy about getting one? I don't know, but she seemed interested in playing with the tool in the beginning, so I think she would wear it. It is almost Halloween, right? She should really get one. Okay, so I'm just tying this into a knot like that. And then I will put it on one more time. Always double check everything, triple check everything before you cut anything. I should have followed that rule in the very beginning, right? And then I wouldn't have had to redo the whole thing. Does that count as a granny knot? I don't know. Maybe it's a square knot. All right, then we cut this off. I'm just gonna cut my tails because I really don't want my elastics hanging out of my sleeve. So I'm actually gonna flip mine inside out so that it's facing down. Then I'll put one on one arm and then I'll use the one that I already made this morning when I was learning how to do this for the other arm. There's one. It doesn't quite fall down all the way until you kind of move it around and make sure that the elastic is the highest part of that. So there's one. It doesn't really look great with this shirt, does it? It's not the look. It's sort of like combining centuries. It's not the best. I'll scoot back a little bit so you can see the whole view. Then I do the other arm right at that bicep. And then there you are. We have our little arm ruffles. I will include everything that I used, all the resources down in the description below. I hope you make yourself some little arm ruffs. They're really pretty and they'll encourage you to keep your port-de-bras nice and big because otherwise you're gonna smash them. So hopefully you make some arm ruffs. Look out for on our Instagram at Broche Ballet. Look out for the progress of our Mirror to Dance this October. It should be super fun. We are starting it next Sunday. So if you're joining us, you have a week to sew your arm ruffs. If not, check the progress of it and all of the dancing with the beautiful arm sleeves. And have an awesome day. It's great to see you all.